At Captain Bailey, this dude went through Bud's Class 30, respected officer. Oh, you know, you knew that name in SEAL Team. And here's a picture of the good captain right there. Not the dude you want looking across from you at the board in Bud's, man. You know, so Cap Bailey's been there and done that. Vietnam veteran, SEAL officer, leading those patrols, and been around, done it. He's been all over the world and done all kinds of stuff. He never stops, and I'm going to give him a call here in a second. But how cool is that? So I've had a lot of officers on here before. Never had a Vietnam officer. Guys that have led the platoon. Again, had a lot of officers here, there for all that. But the CO at Bud's, the CO at Bud's. This is going to be enlightening, and I'm really going to try to get into the you know, the way the captain thought, because you know, I got boarded in Bud's for dive physics, and I'd never want to get that done to me again. But I was given a second chance, and a lot of guys were not. So it's going to be great to get into the insight, because all these years later, I still really don't know what they were thinking, except, you know, I put out a lot. I was a pretty good guy and well liked in there, and I know that had a lot to do with it. But interesting to hear Captain Bailey's things about go and no-go criteria, officer and enlisted. Captain, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm getting it done today. It's been a beautiful day here in Virginia. I actually got a little bit of a sunburn today. Not that I'm whining about it, but it's been a long winter. You know, I'm ready for some of that.
It really has. I was tempted to get out there myself today, but I didn't have a chance.
Yeah. You're down in North Carolina.
Yeah, eastern North Carolina. Not too far south of you, probably about 130 miles.
Did you grow up down there, Captain, or where were you from originally?
I never grew up at all, but I had the opportunity to grow up in East Texas, actually. But when I joined the Navy, I became a resident of the rest of the world, sort of.
There you go. Did you have brothers, Captain?
I did not. I had two sisters.
Any military experience in your family?
Only uncles. My dad was a little bit too old, and he was in a critical occupation, dairy farming, and during World War II, so he didn't get drafted.
You know, I always admired that. You know, I grew up on a beef cattle farm in Pennsylvania, and now those were beef cattle. But guys that have dairy cows, there's no vacation ever.
Never, and that's why my social life was so stunted.
Oh, that's a tough one there. I can't think of any other gig that job somebody can do, and you know, wow, that's a tough way to pay the bills.
But you know, I was thinking after we'd had our conversation a couple of days ago that might have been one of the factors that gave me the stick to it, and this allowed me to get through Bud's, or back in the old days, UDTR. Because even if I stayed out till 2 o'clock in the morning, I still got up at 4:30 to milk those cows. I knew what I had to do, and no matter what I did during the day, I was still going to milk cows at 4:30 in the afternoon till 7 o'clock at night. So you know that, and I kind of, you know, in a way, equivalent that to the discipline imposed by things like competitive swimming. And that a lot of city cats who weren't blessed with being raised on a dairy farm like I was, you know, they've discipline has just been instilled in them by the lifestyle that was either imposed on them or that they chose for themselves. Does that make sense to you?
The cows got fed before anybody in my family did. That was a standing rule. You'll take care of those animals first before anybody does anything. And yeah, I mean, you know, out there breaking the ice on their water troughs, and you know, the feeding and the silage and the
well, I never had too much ice breaking, not down in East Texas, but there were compensating events.
There you go. Well, how do you, now being down in East Texas on the farm, how did you find out about the Navy? What got all that started?
Well, my favorite uncle was a World War II Navy officer. In fact, he landed tanks on Iwo Jima. And he was just a wonderful guy, great college athlete, and just a wonderful human being. And I had always said, I remember being interviewed for some junior high newspaper article that what I wanted to be, and I said I wanted to be a naval officer. So even that far back, I had that in my mind. And then at the end of when I was just about to graduate from college, a recruiter came, an officer program recruiter came by my college down in East Texas, Stephen F. Austin State, and talked me into taking the officer battery test, and I did well enough on them that they asked me to come on in to go to OCS. So I did that, and then some of the folks listening might remember a couple of these guys. A guy named Dave Graveson from Slidell, Louisiana, who died in the last few months, and a guy named Rudy. I think his first name was Rudy Davila. They were both young JGs, and they came to OCS and I made a pitch to my class. And up till then, I'd never even, I saw the movie The Frogman, but I had never even given a thought to doing something that extraordinary. And I just kind of put it in my system, and even while I was on a ship for 8 months, I was thinking about that. And then when I had such a terrible time on the ship, I think I would have volunteered for the toilet detail at the White House to get off of it. So I volunteered for UDT training, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I've talked to Harry Humphreys a couple of weeks ago, and he said the same thing. Get off of that ship. I did it. I was in the fleet first and went to Buds, but. Did you, outside of the farm, this was kind of unique. We've not had that before. The American farms are going the wayside. Did you play any sports in school, college?
I played baseball because in the fall we were milking during football season. I was a pretty good athlete, but my daddy wouldn't let me play football because he needed me to milk the cows. We were milking the most cows in the fall and winter, and then when we started letting them go dry in the spring, he let me play baseball.
Well, I'll be doggone. So, I know the farm boy thing. I fell back on that quite a bit. So you get to UDT-R training. And what were the requirements back then? What did you have to do to get off of the ship?
Well, the physical requirements were, I think, quite a bit less. But the training itself was, to get off the ship, you just applied. And happily for me, I was such a bad actor on the ship as far as my CEO was concerned that he was glad to see me go, and I was glad to get off of that. And he's still living, by the way. I thought he'd been long dead. He was a commander when I was an ensign, but he's still hanging around. But he was glad to see me go, and I can remember an endorsement that he wrote on my application that this young man will no doubt be one of the best UDT officers ever.
Really? That's very cool. Very cool.
He gave me a terrible fitness report.
Yeah, I think I got I had a line that I liked when I first read it, and then I thought about it a little bit, and it said, Senior Chief Shipley's more comfortable in the field than behind the desk. And when I thought about it, I was like, this is a jab at me for a selective performance, I didn't take too well to that environment. So, nothing in the admin way. So, yeah, hey, it served me.
Yeah.
Now, Captain, when you went to UDT-R, now that was out here in Little Creek?
Yeah.
Class 30.
Class 30.
You remember how many guys you started with?
We started with 105 and graduated 35. So we actually graduated a pretty good percent. We graduated a third.
Yeah. Exactly
1/3. And 4 of those were Greeks. So the U.S. graduates probably were about 25%.
How many officers?
4. Randy Wise and Bill Blackman and Tom Truxell and me.
There's a class photo of Mike Murphy, who was killed on June 28th, and it gets a lot of guys kind of worked up because it appears in the picture that with the new berets, the Army went to an Army guy was in that class with them, and I think it was a South American dude. But you had 4 Greeks in yours. I had 2 Thais and 2 Singapore guys in mine, and a lot of foreign officers, foreign enlisted guys have gone through that training.
Yeah, quite a few. There were we had 3 Greeks. I said 4 Greeks. We had 3 Greeks in my class. There were 3 Greeks in the class after mine. So there were consistently some Greeks in there.
I don't want to sound too much like a puss, but if I had an opportunity to go through some other country's buds, I don't think I'd go. The Thais that came had already been through Thai buds training. I'm sure you've seen that go on down there. Tough to go through ours, and I've already been through theirs.
Oh yeah, the Greeks had already been through their training, which was set up by us. So they were not too pleased at having to go through Hell Week for a second time. But they toughed it out, and they did it. They were pretty good troops. One of the Greek officers is now a vice admiral.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'll be doggone. Yeah, I went to when I went back to Thailand years later. The guy I went through buds with was the CO of their SEAL Team 1. And he took good care of us. So we had a good time. Can't have a bad time there.
No, I can imagine.
So
LBFMs.
There you go. There you go. Absolutely, it's still there. They haven't changed. Captain, hard parts of buds.
Let's see. The hardest part, I believe, was running on the beach, running up Surabaya on the East Coast. It's Surabaya isn't just a shadow of its former self, but it was probably 100 feet high and about a 45-degree angle. And the very first step you took on it, you got a boondocker full of sand, and of course the guy ahead of you was kicking sand on you, and you had to run all the way up. And if you didn't do it right, you got to do it again. And what a privilege, huh? But it's the sea and winds has eroded it away to about probably 50 feet high now. But a lot of course, Hell Week is always terrible. But just the routine of going once or twice a week, going at the end of a run or near the end of a run to run up Surabaya, that was awfully tough.
Now, I got a guy on here who was reading a thing that he had wrote about what is UDTR training like, but UDTR training, it was just a different name for buds. It really hadn't changed all that much, has it, or was there some distinct?
Well, I can speak with some authority because I was CO of buds for 3 years, and except for the peer training, the metal peer training down over on the amphib base at Coronado, the training was the same. You had surf torture, and you had the pit, and Hell Week was exactly the same. The mud flats, and there wasn't a nickel's worth of difference between East Coast Hell Week in the old days and current West Coast Hell Week. And the obstacle course was on the West Coast was patterned after the one on the East Coast, and over the years it became more of a challenge, I think, than the East Coast obstacle course because it was configured to replicate real combat situations. For example, you probably maybe you won't remember that, but they've got a wall now where kids have to jump up and grab a window ledge and then creep along and then climb through the window. That would simulate breaking into a hostage barricade situation. So there's a degree of realism as well as a big degree of difficulty.
Yeah, I remember. You certainly know Tom Keith.
Sure,
and,
he went through training with me.
Did he really? He was in your class?
Yeah, you never knew he was there, but you always knew that he was there. If you understand what I'm saying, he never made a sound. But boy, he was in my boat crew, as I recall, and he was really one of the dependable guys, and he became probably the most dependable SEAL in Team 2.
Yeah, well, he certainly took me under his wing when I was at Team 2, and really taught me a lot of stuff. But Tom was so funny when we'd go run the O course, or the only thing he hated more than that was not hated, but was running in a wetsuit. He used to bitch about that, where we're supposed to swim in these things. Why are we running in them? But he would go over to on the O course, and he'd go, I was on hundreds of missions in Vietnam, and not once did the point man ever come up and go, shh, we got an O course in front of us. So, it'd just break everybody up. You know how SEALs are, and, they just lighten the mood, and we'd go kick some ass on the O course. But, yeah, he's something.
I never ran in a wetsuit. I can't imagine any CEO allowing that to happen. If you get shot at when you come out of the water and the water's been cold and you wore a wetsuit, that's one thing. But just to run in a wetsuit for the purpose of getting tough, that's stupid as far as
we'd get a swim in there, but run, swim, run, and carry the fins and hit the beach and do our December Team 2 swims. Well, gluttons, man.
Yeah, we used to do swim runs over in Scotland. We would run a distance to the end of the NATO pier in Campbelltown, and then swim in a wetsuit top across the loch, and then you take the top off and run the rest of the way. But it was really, really cold. Some guys would wear a wetsuit top, but
just recently connected to a guy who was in one of my platoons. I was platoon chief in. I hadn't seen him in years, but he skinned the December swim at Team 2 in a Speedo. It was his final day. He took it off and did the 2-mile ocean swim in a Speedo. And, we thought we were going to have to resuscitate him after, And he is a pediatric trauma surgeon.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, be that was an officer?
No, just a knucklehead enlisted guy. Just used to eat everything in sight. Big chow hound, but just lean, mean, and smart guy. So trauma surgeon's one thing, but I think the pediatric thing is what really got me. And if you go on to seeing SEALs do some great things.
I'll tell you, there's hundreds and hundreds of guys that just you never hear of them because they've gone so far afield from what their backgrounds were. But every now and then you run across one that was at the top of his game, top of his league and profession. What'd you do in the Navy? Oh, I was a SEAL. Oh.
Yep, there you go. Well, that was we have a very senior officer who's I was over in Germany with him, and his wife is an astronaut. And she's been up in space twice in the shuttle 2 or 3 times, and I had him down in Bobogen one night messing around with him. I was like, man, it's got to kind of suck to be you at the parties. Nobody wants to talk to you. They don't want to talk to your astronaut wife. So,
on the other hand, Don, you've got guys who never amount to hill of beans who claim they were SEALs.
Oh boy, we're at those clowns. Yeah, I just got another email from Steve today. Some daughter checking up on her deceased father.
Was it turn out he was a fraud?
Yeah.
That's really tough. I've twice I have called widows and told them that their deceased husbands were not SEALs. But they handled it really well. One of them said, I really had some doubts about him, but I'm pretty sure we officers learn. They teach us how to talk slick so we don't offend anybody. Otherwise, we would never get promoted. I break it to them easily. Let me tell you my favorite story about getting even, a little phony. There was a guy at Little Creek who was taken under the wing of some retired SEAL named Morgan. And he just worshipped this young SEAL, just worshipped this guy Morgan, and so much so that when the young SEAL's wife had a baby, a little boy, they named him Morgan in Morgan's honor. And then it turns out that Morgan was not a SEAL at all. I was just running a scam. And nobody could ever prove anything that happened, but Morgan was buried at Arlington, and it had the Budweiser inscribed on his tombstone. And nobody knows what happened, but one night somebody went in there and chipped away the Budweiser. And isn't that sweet? A sweet story, though.
Wonder who the hell that was. Easy. Captain, did you have any real weaknesses in buds? Were you pretty UDTR? Were you pretty prepared for it? Did you know what you were getting into?
No, not really. But luckily, I got to UDTR almost a month before training started, and there were some guys who had actually been there longer than I had, including one who had been part through training and got hurt early through training, and so I learned a lot about what to expect, and we ran the O course, and so by the time training started, I was pretty much able to handle it. I wasn't as fat then as I am now, but I remember I was talking to one of the old chiefs, John Parrish, one of the instructors, a little bitty guy from Alabama, and I was just asking him what the best advice he could give me for as far as complete training was concerned. He says, best thing I can tell you, Mr. Bailey, he says, is to put your mind in neutral and your ass in gear.
There you go. That's about the way of it. I mean, that's it.
Yeah, it really is. But it was a real great growing experience, and I wouldn't take anything for having gone through the training. If it had stopped at the end of training, it would have really been worthwhile. But happily, it didn't.
Yeah, it's I tell guys it's the first time a lot of guys, especially in the Navy, a lot of guys that go in to buds early. It's the first real time you're really, really treated like a man.
Yeah.
You've got it. They don't you know, it's all about the training here, and you can do what you want, but you show up ready to go out here, and you know, heap the responsibility on you. And it's tough when I hear the guys that don't make it through training, because after that, they're thrust into some A school somewhere. They're standing in formations for 2 hours. You know, just a bunch of unorganized and unmotivated people they're surrounded by. You know, no offense to the rest of the bunch, but they were spoiled in the short time that they spent at Buds, and they are wanting to, you know.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. They're exposed to a different lifestyle, different ethos, and they wanted to be warriors, but they ended up being admin pukes in a way. I'm overstating the case, because we need the rest of the Navy, and happily they do a great job. But a guy coming from Buds going back to a ship is not too much used to the fleet for a while, I suspect.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what's the experience in Buds? Now, you went on to you know, commanding officer of Buds and all that stuff, but looking back as a young officer there, what'd you get out of that? That you know, I've talked to SEAL officers on here before, but from your perspective, none of those guys have, you know, rose to commanding officer of Buds.
Well, I'll tell you what, the thing that meant the most to me personally, that put me in a situation where I realized I had arrived, as far as my own estimation was concerned, was we had gone on a beach run a week or two after Hell Week, and this has been like a 5-mile run, and we formed up down at the golf course. I could take you right where it happened too, at Little Creek, and we had really put out. The instructors were really proud of us, and they said, "Well, you did so well, we're going to do it again." And so we did it again. And man, I'll tell you what, I was absolutely mortified, but I'd gone too far to quit then, and they didn't send us the whole way. We had to do probably 20% of the course again, but I was just dragging. And I remember saying to myself, as we were circling at the end of the run while we were waiting for the stragglers to catch up, I said to myself, I can do anything, I can do anything, I can do anything. And from that, that sounds hokey, but there's an element of that, and things I do now. I know if I put my mind to them, I can do anything except speak Mandarin Chinese.
Just a little bit of practice, and you knock that out in no time too.
I don't think so, son.
You know, one of my favorite, I tell this to these guys on here a lot, my favorite officer story in Buds was my boat crew leader, and we had been running the boats through the surf zone. It was very late at night. It was very cold. We'd been doing it over and over and over, and each time, we'd come out, all the boat crews, and present to the instructors, all manned and ready, and the instructor would go, "Are you guys fired up?" And, all the boat go, "Hoo-yah, hoo-yah." And he'd go, "Are you guys having fun?" "Oh, hoo-yah, hoo-yah." "Do you want to do it again?" "Oh, hoo-yah, hoo-yah." And, we'd go back out and hit the surf. And it was, every boat crew on. And finally, he asked our officer, we'd been doing this for hours, and he said, "You want to do it again?" And he went, "No, not really." And he was like, "All right, secure your boat crew." We were like, "God damn, good for you, man." Oh, we loved him after that, Who
was that?
I'm gonna Fountes. His name was Fountes.
Oh, I never knew him.
Yeah, boy, he was a hero. And that's the way. That was the lesson that night that you learned out there. Tell it like it is.
Yeah, but you know what? We're talking about the tough parts of training and the types of individuals that made it through. Now, if you looked at my resume, raised on a dairy farm, went to a little state school, and I was not a jock or anything. I would run a lot, and I did run track one year in college, but I just was I would probably not even get in Buds now, because you got to hire an advertising agency to sell your package to the selection board. But I remember there were 3 guys in my class, including one that I worked out with a lot. This guy could run all day and swim all night and pull up till the bar bent, and he was a big source of inspiration. His name was Mike Farmer. He was a JG, Lieutenant Junior grade, off of an aircraft carrier, and I thought, man, this guy's going to finish at the head of the class. And there were 2 other swimmers, 2 other guys. One had been a competitive swimmer named Yadernicek, and he was built like a Greek god. And the third guy, also an enlisted guy, was named Stantz, third day of Hell Week, when we had the beach games, those three guys quit. I could not believe it, because they were far, far more physically fit than I was. But I just couldn't believe they quit, because, nothing was hurting me that bad. But, I think it came down to, as we talked about earlier, the cows got fed before you got fed. And it was just a matter of doing what was set before you.
Yeah.
I never even thought about quitting. I honestly can say I never thought about quitting. I thought about thinking about quitting, but I never actually got to that point.
Yeah, some SEAL wrote that, and that everybody thinks about quitting, and I did the same thing. It never got that bad. It was I don't know. I never even came close. The closest I came was RECON, doing the charts every night, because me and one other guy had to keep doing them. I'd kick my helmet across the grinder. We were the only ones there, and but never even close. No, never even close. Never even thought about it. I had fun.
Oh, well, I take that back. One time, I actually probably came close to quitting. I was so angry. But I'll call a name here. It's Tom Blaze. You know Tom Blaze. He's a hard-nosed guy.
Yeah, he's tough.
And I had fallen on the obstacle course and had cracked a rib. And Blaze could see me hurting, but pain to Blaze was like an aphrodisiac. He'd just gravitate to pain to try to inflict a little bit more. And Tom, if you're listening, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But he came over. He came over and started ragging on me, and I mean, I was hurting. I can feel the ribs where it was hurting right now, my lower right side. And he starts to give me a ration. Drop, Mr. Bailey, drop. And I remember thinking, this is absolutely asinine. This was way after Hell Week, and I hadn't screwed around on the old course. He just knew that I was hurting, and he was going to make me do 30 or 40 push-ups. And I don't know what would have happened, but a guy named Alan Archie, third class quartermaster, I believe, came over and one of the class members, and he said, "Instructor Blaze requests permission to speak." "What do you want, Archie?" Said, "Request permission to do Mr. Bailey's push-ups." "Get the hell out of here, Archie. Get the hell out of here, Mr. Bailey." And I don't know, but Archie may have saved me from quitting that day, because Blaze was going to drop me, man, and I was one hurting puppy.
The last time I saw you was at Harry Williams' funeral in Pennsylvania.
Uh-huh.
And
That was
Harry. Well, he was plank owner too, and John Kirby packed a load of us up to go do his kind of memorial. We pallbeared and we stood watches on his casket and all that. And boy, we were treated like royalty up there. Wow.
Okay.
And but that was a tough one. It was a very entertaining one. His old buddy up there, telling sea stories about him. But boy, seeing Tom bury his son was a very tough one. When Rock was killed in that parachute jump.
Oh, it broke my heart. Oh my goodness.
Well, I remember when Harry's, if I remember correctly, Harry, SEAL at Team 2, plank owner, his brother was killed in World War II by a sniper.
Really?
And when I saw his father, now I don't know, you remember how old that guy was, go up and touch him inside that casket, I tell you, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. But seeing Tom do the same thing to his son, man, I tell you, boy, ooh, Nelly, that was a tough one.
Lose a son. They say losing a son is worse than losing a daughter.
Yeah.
I don't know, but man, Tom was his whole world. It revolved around Rock. I knew Tom when Rock was born, and heard the stories of what was happening when he was growing up, and Tom raised him to be a SEAL. Yeah. And he raised him right.
Rock used to tell about his dad coming home from Vietnam on the deployments. He hadn't seen Mama in a long time, and wanted to spend a little bit of time with Mama. And he would take a handful of pennies and throw them in the yard. And little Rock would go out and he'd say, "I'd pick up pennies." And he said, then it dawned on me a few years later what he was doing. Just trying to distract me for 30 minutes. So, yeah, very funny, very funny.
Well, Tom set this. So he kind of set the standard in one respect, at least, for training at Little Creek. If people who had him as an instructor were canvassed, there'd probably be several hundred who suffered under him. Were to be asked which instructor they remembered most. I think 99% of
you still hear all about him. You read all about him. So yeah, he had quite a reputation as an instructor and a SEAL. But doggone. So SEAL officer, you go to team what, sir? 2?
I went to UDT 22 for a year, and then volunteered for SEAL Team 2, and went over there and stayed for 2 or 3 years. Did a Vietnam deployment, came back, and got out for a year and a half to take a job treasure hunting in South America, and then I missed the teams and came back in and stayed the rest of the time.
Now, SEAL officer have certainly had a lot of Vietnam vets that have been on, but not a SEAL officer that led those platoons. What was that like?
Yeah, I took the first one of 2 East Coast platoons. Fred Coachy took the other one, and we had done a lot of training and at Camp Pickett. We could shoot, loot, take pictures with the best of them, but you never know what you're going to do until you get into a combat situation. So we were just kind of feeling our way around, and you were trying to figure out which guys you could depend on and what have you, and yeah, I learned that I had 6 guys in my squad, and 5 of them I could depend on them to do anything. One of them was if I would roll him to hell, but I'm not going to call any names. But suffice it to say, he came back to the team and got out of the Navy, retired from the Navy. But most of the guys, 9 out of 10 of the SEALs who deployed to Vietnam really carried their weight. Some of them did not, and there were some who probably should have got Navy Crosses or even Medals of Honor, but that wasn't the big deal back then. Except there were some guys who put themselves in for awards and got them, but there more often was the case where guys really deserved stuff, but they weren't put in for them.
Now, did you say you were one of the first couple of platoons to go over there?
Yeah, the East Coast. The West Coast had been out there for a year and a half, but they were down in Rung Sat and up in Da Nang, and we were the first American combat units of any kind to be in the Delta and a 4 Corps.
Yeah, I used to love, spending an hour in Intel and poring over all those old after-action reports from back then. So, I mean, you guys were really just kind of feeling your way through, and the lessons learned that I'd read in there, you guys were, the detailed reports that would come back of, the engagements and the lessons learned. You guys were fantastic, it seemed to me, of turning over information to the next guys, and wow, to come out of Fort Pickett or something, to go over there and kind of feel your way around those jungles and learn all that and build the reputation that was built. Wow.
Yeah, you didn't really know what the rules of engagement were either. You'd see somebody, and you knew they were VC, but they weren't carrying weapons or anything, and there were some guys who would open up on anybody in a free fire zone. I couldn't make myself do that. If it was a guy who was obviously out fishing in a free fire zone, I'm not going to blow him away. But there were some. I can tell you some stories about guys who would kill people just because they wouldn't get in trouble for killing them. And these were civilians out in the middle of a free fire zone, and I'm not even proud to say I even know a couple of those guys, but that was it was free fire zones were designated that way for a reason, and that was to keep people off of it.
Starting to lose your connection there?
No, I think I've got an incoming, but we won't worry about that.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, sir.
Yeah,
all good to go.
Yeah.
Boy, the guys, the thing about buds, and so many of these guys now want to, the buds, over a couple of incidents, June 28th, the SEAL snipers, man, we just, I don't know if you caught that, Captain, but Buds Class 281 just graduated training, went into graduated Hell Week, went in with 293 guys and 65 came out.
Went in with how many?
293 guys started Hell Week and 65 came out.
That's only a 20 or 25% completion rate. And I saw a TV program a couple of weeks ago that said that they were running up to above 40%. But you know what? Can I get on a preaching platform for a second?
Hey, we're all ears here. That's what the guys want.
When I was CO at Buds, we did some things that at the time seemed like we were making training easier, but it wasn't easy at all. For example, a guy would get hurt, and you know, in the old days, back when you went through training, if you broke an arm or got a serious sprain, you went back to the fleet. But what I did was I bought a bunch of exercise bikes and other therapy type equipment, and I'd roll these guys back. There was nothing that said I had to turn them loose or they had to be out in 6 months or whatever. So I would roll them back into what became known as phase fourth phase. And I remember an officer I kept for almost a year. I hit him. He didn't graduate, and he was doing therapy and lifting weights. He had hurt his back pretty badly. And that kid graduated, and he became a really stalwart team officer. He also became the star of that TV series called 18-Wheeler, if you remember that. The guy's name was Mike White. He had played football for Bear Bryant at Alabama. And he was just a good guy, solid guy. But in the old days, he would have become a statistic. He had failed. But by keeping him aboard and enabling him to get through, I raised his class's graduation rate probably 5%. And I would imagine over the 2 years that I was running that program, once it became a mature program, we probably graduated about 40%. But the point I'm making, Don, is training was not compromised in any way. We made the trainees, gave them the opportunity that they were denied by getting sick or hurt or whatever. We never rolled anybody back who was a quitter. And if you said, I quit, you're gone. But that just made so much sense. And now they're beginning to do that again. They've got this program now that they've got team guys hired across the country to train guys up, get them ready for BUDS, and it's a multi-million-dollar contract, and that's working.
Captain, did you say something about you were a Ranger at some point?
Oh no, absolutely not.
Yeah, somebody's on here going back about the Rangers.
No, I was twice offered the opportunity to go to Ranger School, and I'd had my hair shaved so many times I didn't want to do it again. So I literally managed to think out of Ranger School. I just didn't want to go.
No.
In a way, I wish I had gone just to say I had done it, but at the time there were a lot of higher priorities in my life.
Another kicking in nuts. But back to BUDS. This is real unique here. We, certainly have had, instructors on here, SEAL officers, and all the guys, that have been on here have been through BUDS. But, looking back at it from your side of the table, I had to go to a board for diaphysics, and I tell you what, I didn't want to go to a second one. So what was some of the criteria there? It seems like, when you started fourth phase, you were doing an awful lot of stuff to keep guys around. So what was some of the criteria, when they go into the board to see the captain?
At the time, it was pretty informal. I would talk to the phase officers and master chiefs, and ask them. Now, these were all guys who had finished Hell Week, and or at least had gone through Wednesday night Camp Surf on Hell Week. That was what everybody had agreed, that if you could make it through Camp Surf on Wednesday night of Hell Week, that you had proved you could make it. Nobody ever quit after that night, so we didn't make anybody repeat Hell Week after that night. But if they had finished that night and then they got hurt later on and were unable to continue training at all, then we would have a little discussion group with the phase officers. They were still in first phase usually by that time, and chief petty officers and leads and LPOs. And if they thought that he was somebody who ought to be in a team, that was a governing criteria. If the instructors felt like there would be good guys in the teams, then we would, up to the point of being ridiculous, of course, we would work with them. We had a doctor, a medical officer, sports medicine specialist that I got assigned to us, TAD, from Point Loma, and he was in charge of fourth phase, and he would assess each individual case and work with the instructors and just gradually work them back into the training syllabus. And as I said, we bought a dozen life cycles and other therapeutic type stuff, because most of the injuries were to the lower body. So the life cycles were basically when a guy couldn't run, we put him on a bicycle, and they would be monitored by instructors. They had to ride that thing until they fell off. So they didn't they didn't get a free ride by any means. And then when they got back physically fit to enter training, they would enter training where they left off. So they didn't miss anything at all.
Yeah, it's funny. I tell guys, and I've never seen it. I've never seen anyone or heard of guys quitting after Wednesday. Wednesday it's it. You're set. And there are guys quitting on Friday just in standard buds outside of Hell Week. So.
You know what? That brings it back. There was a guy that went through my class, and his name was Ruby, and I think we called him Jack Ruby. I think that was his name. This was before Kennedy was assassinated, but I think we called him Jack Ruby. And the guy was the oldest guy in our class. He was like 35 to 36 years old. He was an old man as far as the rest of us were concerned. And the last day of training at Puerto Rico, at the end, the next day we were getting on an airplane to go to jump school at Benning. So that was we were done. And so Ruby was. I knew the instructors didn't much like him. He was a good trainee. He was just kind of weak because he was old, but he did everything that was required of him. And so one instructor one day got him out on the pull-up bar, and just incessantly, unceasingly made him do pull-ups. And finally, Ruby said, "Chief, I'm not going to do anymore. Ruby, you will mount that pull-up bar and knock out block. Chief, I'm not going to do it. Do you realize if you refuse to do them that you will be dropped from training?" That's the last day. And Ruby looked him straight in the eyes and said, "F you, Chief," and walked away. And that was the last we ever saw of him. And that was a good chief too. And even the other trainees thought that was he had taken leave of his senses. If it had been Tom Blaze, he'd just been par for the course. But I won't even call the guy's name. He's dead now. But he was a wonderful educator and trainer. But I think he lost it that day. And poor Jack Ruby just didn't make it through. Even he was within hours of finishing. But
well, that brings up something. Now you're looking on the same side of the fence that I'm looking on because you were in that class. But that officer that I was telling you about that stood up to the instructors and said, "Yeah, we're done. We don't want to do it again." He was thrown out of training just a couple of days before graduation.
Oh, why?
Just kind of performance dropped him, and it really affected the class. But after you were in the teams for a little bit, you realized they had been trying to get rid of him for being a weak. He was a good guy and we loved him, but then when you looked at being in the teams for a little bit, what a SEAL officer was supposed to be, you could see it was we were pretty hosed up. So I don't know. Do you think looking back at that had anything to do with it? That you were not seeing something they were?
No, I don't think so. I think Ruby would have been a better frogman than 4 or 5 of the guys who did get through.
There you go.
And the worst one is still supposed to be Superman. I'm being a little bit hyperbolic, but there's an element of truth there. The worst of us is better than the best of the others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Ruby was clearly in that category. Let me tell you a little story about a performance drop. It was a second phase performance drop at Bud's. Had Master Chief Huckins. You knew him, right?
Oh, the pig. Yeah.
The old Pinky Huckins came to me. He actually came to me. His phase officer, I think, had asked him to do it. Came up to my office and said, "Captain Bailey said, I know you like this particular officer, but and he was a test case. He didn't go to. It was kind of like a National Guard, Naval Reserve guy." And I don't think he'd even been to OCS, but he'd got his commission, going through some kind of training. And he was a stud. I mean, he was a horse. He could do it all. But as Pinky Huckins told me, he said, we could tell him ambush right, and he'd turn left and squeeze off. And said he was just a screw up. And he said someday he's going to get somebody killed. And so he's physically fit, but he just can't do things right, and we don't think he should continue. So then I called the phase officer in, and he confirmed what Pinky had told me. And Pinky was a student's friend. Once you proved that you were able that you were what he wanted, he laid off of it. He was an intelligent. He was a hard-nosed guy, but he was also intelligent enough not to pick on you. And we had a little conference, and I was convinced that this guy was not going to be a good SEAL officer, young ensign, and so I called him up to my office. office, and I gave him the bad news, and he just cried like a baby. I mean, and I don't blame him. You know, I put my arm around his shoulder, you know, and told him, you know, you've not failed in life. It's just that, you know, this is the way things should be, and you're caught in the middle of it. And so we, you know, he got out of the Navy within months and went to DEA, or Border Patrol, and now that guy is a deputy sheriff up in Harlan County, Kentucky, up on this, across the river from Cincinnati, and he's telling everybody he's even got sealed vanity plates on both his personal vehicle and his sheriff's car, and he will not back down. He says that I never claimed I was a SEAL, and yet on his license tag it says ex-SEAL, plain as day, and they won't even make it. Now here's the sheriff won't even make him take those vanity plates off.
Well, I've YouTubed him, and that's what we talked about. And I was wondering, you know, when you wrote that, you know, he was going to kill somebody. But that's the guy holding up, you know, sitting behind that shadow box full of medals. Am I right?
No.
He's holding something in his hand, or the guy with the ex-SEAL plates?
That's different guy altogether. But you know, it's just this guy. My heart still breaks for him because, you know, he was a real hoo-yah guy, a physical horse, good looking. Maybe that's why I didn't want him around. He was just that good looking. But he would have got somebody hurt, and he just wasn't smart. And I don't know how he got in. It was a test program anyway that the Naval Reserve tried out, and it didn't work. I don't think anybody else ever came in. He just didn't. He didn't have the military training at his entry level. It was like he almost came in off the street. Literally, he got a commission after he had met with a reserve unit somewhere for so many times, and then went to buds. And I still feel sorry for him, but I sure do get hacked off at him claiming to be a SEAL.
Yeah, I could see that. Now, you know, you were talking a little bit ago, Captain, about you know, Wednesday night of Hell Week and the guys that were hurt. But the other guys came to you for the performance stuff, the dive physics, the pole comp, just the you know, guys that were just soup sandwiches out there. Or, you know, soup sandwich is a bad word because I'm looking to try to see what your criteria was for guys that had other problems in buds, to where you sent them away or where you kept these guys, and then, you know, what the difference was, officer enlisted, that same kind of criteria.
My philosophy was, except for this one case, I never got involved. If my phase officers and the phase CPOs and LPOs, if they felt like he shouldn't go any further, you know, then he didn't go any further. I just left it to them. I did not get in their knickers, and I never overruled them. Maybe you could say I was a wimp, but you know, those guys put through some, you know, terribly good SEALs, and here I was a new guy on the block, for goodness sake. Some of those guys have been instructors for 5 years, and I wasn't going to override them. I had guys like John Koenig and Pinky Huckins, and some of the most outstanding sailors I have ever run across. And unless I saw them doing something really, really stupid, I wouldn't. They would just tell me that they've dropped so and so for performance reasons. Now, I'll tell you what I did do, Don. You remember the steel piers, right?
Oh yeah.
I always thought that was stupid.
Well, I didn't like it much when I was doing it, but yeah.
He told me any training value you got out of it. It was on what, Tuesday night, and Monday night or Tuesday night. You'd already been in surf torture in the middle of the winter, and you're shaking so hard your teeth were rattling, and so why put you out there on the? Nobody ever quit during. I don't know of anybody who ever quit during their doing steel piers night. And
no.
So what training value was there? And I just made them drop it from the curriculum. I just got so angry that they would keep something so archaic and yeah. But well, we just always done it. We didn't always do it at Little Creek, and we turned out a pretty good product. And so you know, a little bit of training, your ability to stand up to cold weather is one thing. But when you do it 3 nights in a row, I think that's kind of dumb.
For the guys that don't know what you're talking about, there was also another name for it that we had, or the instructors had for it, and that was moon tanning.
Moon what?
Moon tanning.
Yeah, I never heard that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we moon tanned, but they were big steel. I'm kind of explaining to the guys here, these big steel barges there, and we'd strip off and lay on our backs, and be in the water doing some different evolutions, and
yeah. Actually,
oh, it was bad.
I think some guys just got some of the instructors just got a lot of joy out of inflicting pain and seeing how these guys, dance around on those cold, wet piers, and I just we never lost anybody, and we had I just had them insert some other evolution in there that had some semblance of training value. But by Tuesday night, you proved that you're. I never knew anybody to quit past Tuesday night, for goodness sakes. I was so got hurt, but Wednesday night for sure. If they made camp surf on Wednesday night, they were, unless they got hurt or couldn't perform in other evolutions, they were in for the duration.
Billy Nesda, we were in my first platoon together. We made first together, chief together. He retired a lieutenant commander, and long-time BUDS instructor. A couple of tours out there as a BUDS instructor, and then an advanced guy. And he's right along where you are. He was like, boy, some of the stuff we used to do, or what I had to do, was just the gladiatorial arena. It didn't mean anything, and you just kind of suffered through. And he said, over the years, we're starting to do things smarter instead of harder. Some of the evolutions,
Yeah, and he worked for me. He worked for me probably a couple of years. Mm-hmm. In fact, I recommended him for officer.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Well, he made chief with me. We got frocked. And initiated, and he left the next day for OCS. So I was used to screwing him. I was like, you stole chief from some poor guy, and now you're giving it up. Good guy. He's been on here plenty, and he comes down and helps out with the courses, and he's still big into all kinds of stuff. So BUDS instructor.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a real good guy. Real good guy. What about some anything else tips for these guys, Captain? For just how to conduct themselves. I'd like to hit officers a little bit. You had said something before about an advertising agency for officers or something.
Well, I was being a little bit ridiculous, but right. It's almost ridiculous. How hard it is for an officer to get into training. I think that's one reason why you have a much higher graduation rate, because they have to want it so badly that they put they have to be able to do more pull-ups and swim faster, run faster than because it's easier for an enlisted guy to get into training than it is for an officer, because back in the day. When there's a guy named Vice Admiral, he was Oppo 6, heavy duty guy. I can't think of his name right now, but he came out to BUDS, and I'd known him in Vietnam. He was a jerk in Vietnam, and he was a jerk as Oppo, as a 3-star admiral. I knew him as lieutenant commander in Vietnam, but he was one of these guys that he sucked up to the people who could get him promoted, and he came out and looked at training. I gave him a very good walkthrough, and I just commented that these guys got some Naval Academy guys here, and you'll be pleased that he was a Naval Academy guy. Hank Mustin was his name. I hope he's listening to your program tonight. But well, he goes back. All I did was compliment him on the fact that the naval officers were doing a good job. He goes back, calls the commandant of the Naval Academy, and tells him that every Naval Academy officer who is fit is to be allowed to go to BUDS. And well, immediately that cut back on the OCS guys, on the fleet guys, and so on and so forth. So we had a predominance of Naval Academy guys coming in. Well, they changed it a little bit, but I think right now about half of the guys coming into training are Naval Academy. So those quotas come right off the top. And so the competition for the guys wanting to go to OCS and to come out of the fleet or NROTC, there's almost nobody coming in from NROTC. Almost nobody, because the Naval Academy's got about half the quotas. Not as good as the Naval Academy guys are, and they are good. There's no question. I was just making an innocent comment that the Academy guys were doing a good job for me, and he goes back and I guess he interprets that as saying that they're better than everybody else, which was not true. And they were all doing a good job, but I knew that Admiral Mustin was a Naval Academy guy.
It was like a misquote, doggone. You know, and you know what's cool right now is the amount of programs they have for these young enlisted guys. You know, do a couple of tours overseas and sending them off to college, bringing them back as O's. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
fantastic.
they do have a lot of good programs for them.
Seaman Admiral stuff. Final words for these guys, CO of Buds, these young guys going in.
Well, you know, the fact that somebody like me could get through with no background at all, and particularly in sports or physical fitness. You know, I was reasonably fit, but certainly wasn't like these kids coming up now. But if a guy like me can get through training, anybody who's reasonably fit, if he's got the mindset and wants it badly enough, can get through training. And no matter how bad you're hurting, the pain will always ease. But if you quit, the pain of quitting will never go away. So know what you're doing when you get in there, but once you're there, keep your mind on what you're doing.
Well, these guys certainly hear a lot of that. You know, they hear the stories. You know, every guy I get on here says, the big athletes, the Superman, never were the first ones to go and all that stuff. And it's very true in a lot of cases. And it's the guy you never thought would get through. Is just a guy that it just turns into a ball of whoop ass. And
well, you know, Tom Keith was one of those guys.
Yeah.
He never said a word during training. He just did his job and stayed with us. But you knew there was something that he had, you know, that was going to let him rise to the top. But you know, if you had picked out the top 10 guys in our class, 6 of them would have quit.
Right, absolutely.
But you know, Tom Keith was probably, if you just looked at him and talked to him a few minutes, you'd say, well, he's probably make it through, but he'll be in the lower third. Oh, man, this guy was Superman, because he had all the qualities, not just physical fitness, but he had mental toughness. And you know, you've heard the award, the Fire in the Gut award.
Right.
I started that.
Oh, did you?
And now they're giving the Fire in the Gut award to some guy at the big May fundraiser up on the Intrepid. I'm not going to tell Dave Yankee that I gave him that was my term, but in fact, there's one guy. Do you know Mike Noel?
Yes, sir.
Mike Noel got the Fire in the Gut and the Honor Man award.
He's been down here and run PT for the guys before, helped out.
He's really a good guy.
He's a good guy.
I put him through training. He went through training while I was out there.
Blackhawk, for the guys that are listening, we're talking.
Well, anybody who's an honor man has my respect, but anybody who was Fire in the Gut winner has even greater respect from me, and he had both of them. God bless him.
Well, Captain, I tell you, the guys got an awful lot out of this. A lot of guys, you know, it's Friday night out there. A lot of guys are going to see this, and powerful, very powerful. Best show we've done. CO of Buds. How much better does it get than that? So, guys,
I tell you what, Don, if you want to try to do this again sometime and have a call in,
yeah,
set up a particular date, I'd be glad to answer questions from guys who want specific answers about what to expect at Buds.
It's a date. That sounds fantastic, sir. I'm going to have to hook up another line, figure out how I can do that. But, yeah, a lot of guys call in, but very cool. Guys, you know what the problem is today, Captain, or it was easier for you and I? We didn't have the internet.
That's true. Well, you know, speaking of that, instead of phoning you, they could send you an email.
There you go. Yeah.
And that's just as real time as talking on the phone. Hey, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you for inviting me on. It was really fun.
Well, thank you again, Captain, and really good job, sir. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, sir.